Welcome to the Chat with the Champions. My name is Raman Badekar. I am a trainer, assessor, project manager, consultant, coach, and would like to be much more. I live in a beautiful country called Australia. I've worked in several professional roles, worked across multiple organizations, traveled to several places, and over the years have been blessed with the privilege and opportunities to meet and collaborate with some awesome and amazing, inspiring people from around the world. These are some passionate people who are really good at what they do. The work they do makes a lot of difference in the lives of a lot of people. There is so much others can learn from these achievers in their journey. In spite of their success and achievements, they often are very humble about everything they do. So, I've embarked on a journey to interview these champions, or as I would like to call them, the best practice practitioners. In these interviews, I would like to try my best and get them to talk about themselves, their work, their values, and tell us how and why they do what they do so very well. So buckle up and join me in this journey and let us get to know these champions through the Chat with the Champions. The champion I interviewed today is Charlotte Sheehan, Industry Training Advisor, MITO New Zealand. I absolutely loved this interview. I hope you like it too. Charlotte, welcome to the Chat with the Champions. How are you?
I'm very good. Yourself, Raman?
Good. How's the weather in New Zealand today?
We've had a bit of a mixed bag. We've had all sorts, as you know, that's typical Auckland weather. We've had 4 seasons in one day, but it's overall been very nice, yes.
Perfect. I've been there, seen that in Auckland, so I miss and not miss that. We've been quite great here. It's sunny a bit, and second day out of the lockdown, so fingers crossed, and we'll see how we go. Anyways, all right, so welcome again to the Chat with the Champions. And as I've told you, the purpose of this style of interview is to get to know more about champions like you, who in the community keep doing their work without expecting any recognition. So the first purpose is to recognize the fantastic work you and people like you do for the community and the country, New Zealand. There, and also for your story to get out there, so there might be people in your situation or in situations they are in, where they could see your role or your journey as a guide to a pathway into their own, fulfillment of life. Okay, so you're ready for this?
Absolutely. Let's go.
So Charlotte Sheehan, just tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm not originally from New Zealand. I came to New Zealand 21 years ago, and I did some university study in New Zealand. I did a communications degree. Wow. And after that, I went on to do several jobs. I worked for a finance company as a sort of in a call center, and I was sort of trying to find my purpose in life, I guess, at the time. And I ended up working for the New Zealand Customs Service for 11 years. Wow. And I spent about 6 of those 11 years working in the training team. And after that, I went on to work for Fonterra for 18 months, which I really, really enjoyed. And after that, I decided I wanted to try my hand at something else, and I moved on to work in the HVAC industry for a year before this role with MITO came up. And at the time, working in the HVAC industry, I was in a role where I was quite far removed from the people we were training and the training we were delivering, and I was really missing that aspect of it. And I thought, when this role with MITO came up, I thought, gosh, it's a good opportunity to get back to where the learning really happens, and where you get to work with people and see how they learn and develop and grow. And that's where my passion really lies, and that's what I wanted to do. So so I took up the role with MITO in September 2019, and I've been doing it for the last 2 years, and then really, really, really enjoyed it.
No, fantastic. I think that's how long I've known you as well for, since you started with MITO, and I think you took over from someone else there. So now you work as an industry training advisor with MITO. So yes. Can you tell us what is MITO, and then tell us about your role as well, which is an industry training advisor?
Okay, so MITO is the industry training organization that looks after the motor industry mainly. Yeah. We've got a few other industries that we look after as well, but the bulk of the learners that we look after are heavy and light automotive learners. And they do qualifications across level 3 and 4. We also have some business qualifications. So we have a first line management qualification and a diploma in business.
Yeah.
And we've also got a few qualifications in electric vehicles. So we do obviously want to make sure that we stay on top of and move with the times, and make sure that there are opportunities for learners and for people in New Zealand to be upskilled, to be able to I guess, do what they need to do, and stay ahead and stay with the times. So yeah, that's mainly what we do. So we're not a training provider, but we look after apprenticeships mainly. So that's there's sometimes a bit of confusion for people. I think that we deliver training. So with the business qualifications, we do contract that out to other providers to deliver the training on our behalf. Yeah. But what we mainly do is support learners through apprenticeships.
Yes, certainly.
And qualifications, and training, yes.
Yeah. So for our Australian sort of viewers to understand that, so MITO is a one-stop shop for people who want to get into trades. So you connect with the employers, and then you sign up a training contract, and then you have a training plan, and then you monitor that training plan, obviously guide the employer, guide the learner to eventually complete an apprenticeship, which is as per what the national qualification framework is. And I think, as you said, because MITO stands for Motor Industry Training Organization, so you are servicing the motor industry, but then you have other qualifications which you deliver through other partners, so that people in the industry can get qualified. And I think from memory, you guys do heavy light auto, plus then you have also parts merchandising, and now you said frontline management. So basically you are giving a new apprentice a complete pathway, starting from the shop floor through to the management as well. So absolutely. Fantastic. And I think I've known MITO for since 2008 or maybe earlier, and fantastic work. And I always wonder, how does it work? Because it just happens, and I've seen apprentices get qualified, and you've got a sort of a distance learning program, and then you monitor, then you have those sessions, you call them as practical sessions as well. So, but we'll talk about MITO a bit more, but tell me about your role as an industry training advisor.
So my role as an industry training advisor, I'm responsible for, so my region is the South Auckland region.
Yes.
So I look after about between 130 and 150 learners, depending on where the numbers are at, in the South Auckland area. Yeah. And my role as an industry training advisor, is to support these learners through either the apprenticeships they're enrolled into, or the qualifications they're doing. So typically what we would do after a new learner has signed up for a qualification, we would go and do an induction visit with them. So we would show them the systems and how it all works. And as you've alluded to before, there is an element of e-learning. So most of our qualifications are delivered through e-learning or theory, and then the practical component, which they do in the workshop. So we normally will, at the start of a qualification, we'll do the induction visit. We'll show them how the e-learning or theory works. We'll get them set up, make sure that they can access everything they need to, and we will then set a few goals for them to make a start on. We will then go back 6 weeks later and have a follow-up visit with the learner, just sort of check in, see that make sure that everything's still working as it should, and that they're on their way and completing theory. And then in 6 weeks' time, we meet with them again for their first proper 3-monthly goal-setting visit. And from there on, we then meet with them every 3 months, once a quarter. So we meet with learners once a quarter, and we set goals, and we talk about things that they might be stuck on, and those sorts of things. So it's very much a role where you get to support learners, and where you really get to engage with them closely, and not only with learners but also with their supervisors. Yes. And there's a little bit of, we've got a small element of cold calling in the role as well, which to be honest, initially I didn't particularly love, but the more I did it, the more I started actually really enjoying it, because you started to get to know people in the region. And everyone around the region, all the workshops around the region have been really perceptive, and people are really often quite happy to actually see me. And I've often walked into a workshop and people go, "Oh, actually, I've been hoping you would come round, because I've got some people that I want to enroll into apprenticeships." And that's what it's all about. It's about connecting and getting getting more people into the trades. And, once you sort of get them in, to really properly support them, because you don't want someone to start only to sort of drop out again. So we want to make sure that people are very, very well supported. And that's a huge part of this role.
It is. So I'm just, and I think I've known a few industry training advisors through my career as well. And it's a very interesting role. It's a sales role. It's a strong account manager role. Then you have to quickly wear the hat of a coach and mentor for the learner. But then I've also seen you become coach of a supervisor who sometimes is a young person who stepped up into the role, and now suddenly they have to guide a bunch of apprentices and learners, and who can be a school leaver to a mature age apprentice and anything in between. So I've seen that. I think the relationship building is so important. I think I've said to you, Charlotte, a few times that often I was a customer of yours in that respect, and I thought that you only work for me. So that's the level of up-to-date information you always had. And now technology has come to rescue now, but I think I've seen your predecessors have the same sort of, they walk in with the folder, but it's like they have been watching the apprentice all the time. But no, they've come and seen them after 3 months. That's so much of information retention you have to do and stuff like that. So, so what do you love about this role, Charlotte?
One of the things, there's so much I love about the role. I could be here all day telling you about it, but yes, I do really love the variety in the role. There's a lot of variety, as you've just said. There's a lot of there's an admin component, which I love. Some people don't, but I absolutely love it. You get to travel around the region and see different people and work with different people. So despite the fact that we don't have, so all the industry training advisors have home offices. So we don't have a building where we go and we physically meet with people, but I've truly never ever felt that I was alone or anything like that, because you've just got so much variety and so many different learners that you get to go and see, and supervisors, and there's always more stuff to do. So it's a very, very busy role, and it's certainly not a role that you ever you can't ever get bored in it, because there's just so much work. So but it's really good, that support that you get to provide learners, and when you sort of have worked with someone and see them get through their qualification and get to the end where you finally can take that certificate to their supervisor, and you know that person's now qualified, and they can go forth into the world and they've got a qualification that they will take with them forever. That job satisfaction, or the personal satisfaction you get out of something like that, is just not something that I think you can get in many roles that you'll be working in. So there's a real sense of community as well that I find. People are always happy to see you, and they're very welcoming, and they really trust you with, supervisors really trust you with their apprentices, and you form really good bonds and relationships with people. So there's so much to love about a role like this, that it's and you've got opportunities to to grow your region, but you grow within yourself as well. You learn things about yourself, and you because you're working with people from all different walks of life, you learn how to deal with those people. Someone who's just straight out of school and someone who's been in the industry for 40 years and is the general manager are completely different people, and you get to work with people across the whole spectrum, and that's really, really interesting as well.
And I've always said, look, apprenticeship in New Zealand, at least in the automotive industry, wouldn't be where they are today, or wouldn't even exist for some remote branches or locations. It's only because of MITO and people like you who can go every now and then and make that apprenticeship possible for an apprentice in a remote area. And that's amazing. Now, how many employers roughly do you look after? I mean, you said you have 130 odd apprentices, but over how many employers roughly?
Between about 40 and 60 employers.
Wow.
Yeah, because some of the bigger workshops have a number of apprentices, but then some smaller workshops will only have one. Sometimes they have two, but I've got a lot of workshops where there's only one apprentice.
And that's exactly what I was trying to allude to, that you can make that apprenticeship feasible and affordable for a small business. Even, I mean, large companies have the money to do that, but even for small ones, you can be that admin person, the coach, and everything, which they can't afford to employ. So fantastic. Now, geographically, you said it's South Auckland, isn't it? But so roughly how big is that area you have to travel and cover?
Yeah, so I travel. So the top end of my region is Wirri, which is from where I live is about 20 minutes. It's probably about 15. Yeah, it's about 10 to 15 kilometers from where I live, sort of to the top end, and then it's about 10 kilometers sort of the other way. So my region spans probably across about 25 to 30 kilometers long, and it's not really that wide. It's probably about 10 kilometers or so wide. Across sort of the Papakura Takanini area and then into Manurewa a little bit. So yeah, it's to be honest, I'm one of the lucky industry training advisors for the reason that my region, despite the fact that I've got a lot of learners, it's not a huge region, which I'm actually really lucky with. Some of my South Island colleagues drive for hours and hours, something like 2.5 to 3 hours just to get to some of their appointments, which I never ever had to do. So yeah, some industry training advisors do travel a lot, but we cover the whole of New Zealand. So you have to get people to those remote locations where those learners are to ensure that they can continue with their apprenticeship. So yeah, it is about supporting them too.
Now, and I've seen you guys go from a paper-based system to your e-learning platform, and I think I've seen you guys use SharePoint and MS Teams used so effectively. So how was that transition?
To be honest with you, Raman, it happened before I was with MITO, but I've heard that the previous system we used wasn't as great. So when I started with MITO, we were already doing e-learning. But having said that, there were a few qualifications. So we had a number of qualifications that were New Zealand. So at the end of 2019, a lot of the qualifications in New Zealand changed from it was called a national certificate in light automotive, or whatever the qualification was, to a New Zealand certificate. So basically what that meant was a lot of learners either had to decide whether they could finish the national certificate by the end of that year, or whether we transferred them to the new qualification. And the danger, I guess, not the danger, but the downfall of sometimes of a qualification getting redone is, yes, you get a whole lot of new unit standards in there, but what that means for learners in a current qualification is if they transfer across, they end up losing a little bit of credits and they have to redo some of the work because the qualification changes to some extent. So what was happening at the end of, so I joined in September 2019 during a relatively chaotic period because a lot of the qualifications were finishing were basically finishing at the end of that year, and learners needed to complete. So, but with these qualifications, there were a handful of them that sort of carried over, and their expiration date was the end of 2020. So I had some of these, and I worked with some of these learners. I think I had about 5 or 6 that were doing boat building and coach building and things like that.
Yes.
And these qualifications were very heavily reliant on paper-based assessments. In fact, all of them were. So you had 3 different sorts of assessments, and you'll remember these. There was the theory.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Practical, and there was some other assessment, but so a lot of these assessments had to be sent away to a polytech, and then you needed to wait for the next book and that sort of thing. So it was very labor intensive for the learner. It was very labor intensive for the industry training advisor because there was always a lot of paperwork going backwards and forwards, and things took a long time. And I'm also told that anecdotally, but probably true, that a lot of assessments went missing because people would just throw it in an envelope and put it in the mail. But then, months later, someone would call Wintech and they never got it, or, something had happened. So the move and the change to an online system was revolutionary, and really made things a lot easier. And we've still got the odd learner now, even on the new qualifications. We've got a handful of learners that are still using hard copy booklets to complete practicals.
Yes.
And it's quite a process. I mean, I don't mind it, but I do try and explain to learners that it's a lot quicker if they use the online system, because we've got an online system for practicals. It's so much quicker if they use the online system, because typically with a hard copy practical booklet, I would, if a learner called me up today and said, I've got a booklet for you to collect, if it's by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not going to be able to get to Wirri and back home in a good amount of time. So I would normally say, right, well, I'll be there first thing tomorrow. I'll pick it up. But even then, I've got to create a purchase order and put all the paperwork together. And, it could take a day or 2 for me to find out who the assessor is. And then I've got to drop it off at the post shop. So sometimes it can take up to a week before the assessor's even got the assessment. And from there, they might take another week or 2. They've got 10 working days. It might take a good 3 weeks before the learner's even got the result. Whereas if they do the practical online using the app that we use, they can have the results sometimes within a few days, because it's instantly on the work queue, it's instantly assigned, and it's just a lot quicker. So it's just systems that work, and MITO certainly has systems that work like clockwork, like I've never seen in an organization before, make life a lot easier for everybody, and it's really good.
And trust me, I mean, as a customer, when I was a customer there, it was revolutionary. And so for the listeners who don't know, the viewers who don't know the system, basically an apprentice does a certain unit, and there are several units of competency. So they have to complete the theory booklet from a handbook they have. Then the supervisor has to sign their third-party observation checklist. Then Charlotte has to go and collect that, or sometimes the learner will post to Charlotte, then Charlotte will send it to an assigned assessor, who sometimes is a third party, and then it gets posted to them, then they send it back. Sometimes they may have corrections on it, which then have to go back to Charlotte, then back to the learner, then the learner fixes back to Charlotte, back to assessor, and then it would be a long time. With the electronic system, it's just instantaneous. And I have seen, and I want to come to, because of this system, I've seen quite a few apprentices finish early because they had some prior experience. They were mature age. And I can very proudly say 2 of my female apprentices finished far. I still think Hillary is the fastest completion ever of an apprenticeship. And because of this, these issues were resolved, she was able to do it quicker. So I think we're getting too technical about the whole thing. But nevertheless, I think what I wanted to bring out was the amount of organizing and background work an industry training advisor has to do is immense. And coming back to providing that excellent customer service experience to customers like myself and several others, and also dealing with stakeholders, like the assessors are stakeholders, their learners are stakeholders. Then you also have to deal with organizations who organize practical for your learners. So you have to then go and organize that. So there's a lot of background work happening, which you guys do effortlessly. And as I've said in my LinkedIn recommendation I wrote for you, is that you've got exceptional stakeholder management skills. And it's not possible unless you're passionate about doing it. And I know that's how the energy comes. And I've seen you just be there whenever we needed a response. You were quick with that. You always articulated very well. You tried to find a solution. So well done. And I may have done this before, but I really want to thank you for the experience I had as a customer from you and with MITO as well. Okay. Now, for those who want to become an industry training advisor, what is your advice to them, or who can do this role? Do you have to have a certain background, or have to have done a certain qualification to do this, or it's open for several people? I know several people from different backgrounds. So what do you say?
I think to be able to do the role, first and foremost, I think you need to have the right attitude. I've never had to hire an industry training advisor, but I'm sure that when my manager, Jody, looks to hire new people, one of the main things that they would always want to look at, or that they're always looking for, is someone with the right attitude. You need to make sure that whoever's coming into this role is going to be someone that can work with learners and can work with people. So I think you need good people skills, and you need a fair amount of patience in this role to work with people, and the ability to work with people from different walks of life. So within the team that I work in the regional team and the northern team, we've got a bit of a mix of people in the team. So we've got a few people that have come from industry. In fact, 2/3 of the team, I would say, are people who have come from industry. So they've worked in light and heavy automotive, and have got various levels of experience. Some of them have even worked in polytechs before, or TAFEs, as you call them in Australia. Yes. So they, so they've got that sort of background. And then there are a few of the people in the team like me we've got more of an education and adult education background. So we don't necessarily have the technical skills, but we make up for not having the technical skills by being able to be really good with supporting and training adults and understanding how adults learn and how you make things easy for people to sort of take on board. So we've got a really good support network within MITO, so that someone like myself, for instance, if I don't have the technical knowledge, or if I get asked a question that I'm not sure of, there are always people I can ask. So someone who doesn't necessarily have the technical knowledge, that shouldn't be something that puts them off from applying for a role like this. I think if it's something you're really passionate about, if you're passionate about learning, and if you're passionate about helping others achieve their goals, I definitely think that it's a role that anyone could do, as long as you've as long as you're willing to learn, and as long as you're willing to to work well and kindly and nicely with the learners, and be that support person for them. I think that that's really mainly what's required for this role. I definitely think if if you've got some technical knowledge, it's an advantage. It's definitely an advantage, but it's certainly not you certainly wouldn't be disqualified if you didn't have the technical experience.
Fantastic. Well said. I think for those who are listening, I think should take notes on this and possibly go for the role if they get a chance. Now, Charlotte has brought a lot of things to this role. So I have seen a few industry advisors before you as well. They were all great in their own way. As you said, some of them are strong technically, some are good account management. You bring a whole set of skills to this. But then I would like to ask you, has the role given you something back? So has this job role of industry training, has it given Charlotte something to take away?
Absolutely. I've learned quite a bit about cars during the time that I've worked for MITO over the last 2 years.
And trucks too, okay? And trucks. Yes.
Cars and trucks, absolutely. I have actually learned quite a bit about them. I think I've really, to be honest, I've really grown as a person. I've learned to be a lot more patient with learners. And previously, I'd always worked in organizations where the organization paid the people you trained. So they were, they had to kind of listen, they were sort of in an environment where you were sort of the person in charge, and they had to sit down and be quiet and listen, sort of thing. But in this role, you are working with people in their own environment, and they're people that they've signed up to do this, and and you're really more there as a support person. So it's not a sit down, listen to me, I'm going to tell you what to do type thing. It's actually, it's a little bit, to be honest, it's sort of in reverse a little bit, because you sort of go into their world and you need to sort of try and uncover the difficulties and the issues that they might be facing. So I've learned to sort of, I guess, try and stick with someone and try and get to the nitty-gritty of things, because people are often also not very forthcoming with information. You can kind of tell there's something wrong, but so I think in that sense I've learned to be patient. I've learned to sort of not give up at the first I'm fine type thing with a learner, and sort of to gently and carefully try and unpack some of the issues that people might be facing. I think I've gotten a lot better with admin as well. There's quite a bit of admin in this role, but it's really enjoyable admin. But I've had to learn the computer system that we use is relatively complicated, so I've really enjoyed learning about that. And I guess just being able to really connect with people across different walks of life. I think it's given me skills so that I can go out there and be confident that I can easily speak to a CEO and easily speak to someone who's straight out of school. That you get experience, because often in organizations, depending on, I guess, where in the organization you are, you might not get an opportunity to speak to people right at the very top, or you might not speak to people who are just brand new in the organization because of the sort of I guess, your position or the area of the organization that you work in. So it's been really wonderful to be able to deal with people all the way through. And a lot of problem solving, I think, also is
problem solving
I've gotten a lot better at.
all the time,
Yes.
No, and I think some of the problems we have solved together too. So I can see, I can always, that's a conversation for another time. But now the other thing I wanted to ask you is, I mean, your whole involvement in this role is an achievement in itself, and likewise for learners. I can speak on behalf of the learners as well. So it's such a good thing to have an ITL like you. But just to say, is there any achievement in this role you would like to share, like for you or for a learner, that you are really, really proud of? So something, something you can share. Yeah.
Sure. So one of the things I was actually really, really proud of during my time in MITO that I got to Two things actually. I'll keep it short, but I'll try and I'll share these two things with you. So when we had the qualification, when we had the coach building and boat building qualifications finish at the end of 2020, I ended up with 5 learners that were all enrolled in these qualifications, and one learner in particular had, at the start of 2020, he was 25% of the way through his qualification, so he had a significant amount of work that he needed to do in that year. And I sat down with him and I said, look, we are going to, I didn't want to say we need a miracle, but we just about needed a miracle. But I said to him, look, we're going to do our very best, but you will really need to put in a huge effort. Otherwise, by the end of the year, if you're not done with the qualification, at the time, there was no replacement yet. We were working on a replacement, but as it stood at the time, there was no replacement qualification. So the learner would basically end up not having the qualification after all the time that they'd spent working on it. So I said the same sort of thing to all of them, but I said, look, we really need to knuckle down. And then, of course, we had the lockdowns and things. So that took up a few months and sliced up a few months off the progress, I guess, and me being able to meet with them regularly. So last year, sort of around June, July, we're all back on track and out there. And between July and October, all 5 of those learners I started doing weekly visits with them, and I was sort of on their necks like a bit of a nag, but I every week I met with each of them, with all 5 of them, and we sat down and we worked on things, and we mapped it out, and we collected books, and we sent them away, because this was still the book system of picking up books and dropping off books, and it was a lot of work. But it was so rewarding, because at the end of it, all 5 of them qualified. They all got their qualification before the end of the year, before the qualification expired. And it was incredible and it wasn't me that did all the great work. It was them that did all the great work, but it was so incredibly satisfying and rewarding to see each of them actually gain their qualification. It was really, really wonderful, and I was so happy for them, and I was just so proud of the hard work that they put in. So that was sort of the one thing, and I was really, really proud of. I guess in a very tiny way, I was a bit proud of. I'd also put in an effort, but they did the hard work. But it was good to get them all across the line. So that was really good. And the other thing that really stood out for me was every year within MITO we have awards for various things. So there's the most number of cold calls, there's the Industry Training Advisor of the Year, all sorts of different things. And one of the categories for that is the Māori and Pacifica Achievement, because we get funding from the government. There's quite a strong focus on Māori and Pacifica learners and making sure that we reach parity with those learners. So they've got to achieve at the same level as our European learners. And every year there is an award for the highest credit achievement for Māori and Pacifica learners. And quite unexpectedly last year, I actually won the award, and I was just so pleased because it wasn't something that I specifically tried to win, but I had put in a lot of time and effort with the Māori and Pacifica learners, and I was really, really proud to have won that award. I was really, really pleased. So those were sort of 2 career highlights for me, I guess, so far.
Charlotte, you can't buy that with money, stuff, it will stay. And I think you've made a difference in so many people's lives. And I often find that they then go and propagate that, and they then make difference in other people's life. And it's such a rewarding career, that one. So fantastic. I think that was pretty much what I had planned to ask you today. But the other thing I want to, and we both are passionate about that, and you, myself, and you, Jody, and myself, we had a nice meeting in Auckland in 2020, then COVID hit, and then we couldn't meet again, and then I moved on from that job. But I think getting more and more females in the non-traditional trade. So what is the scene now since when we discussed to now? Is there been an increase in more and more females coming into trade? What's the scene?
In my region, I've seen a small increase. I've got 3 female learners at the moment, where I had none in the previous 2 years.
Wow.
So I've had 3 female learners enrolled this year. And we just before, it was actually in the week that Auckland went back into lockdown, we were supposed to have a Women in Trades event, which unfortunately got cancelled and couldn't go ahead. But there definitely seems to be an increase in women within trades, or in female population entering into apprenticeships and trades. I don't unfortunately have any stats on it per se, but especially in my region, there's a lot more interest, and we're certainly starting to see if some apprentices come through.
Perfect. I think it's good. I think we all have to stay put at it, and I think thanks to MITO, I was able to contribute to a few female apprentices. Now they become tradespeople, and I think hopefully they will get in more and more females to come into this. So that's great. Now, before I close the call, I just want to do a bit of a shout out to your present and past colleagues as well from MITO. First of all, Jodie Franklin does an amazing job, your manager. And then I think I remember Chris Statham prior to you. And then we had Mark Lawrence. I think these people educated me with what MITO is. And then we have Jeremy, then Gary Faulkner. I think Jeremy is from Palmerston North and Gary is from Bay of Plenty. And all right, Marie Thomas, fantastic lady. And I think we've worked a lot together as well. So you all are amazing people. You do an absolutely stunning job. And Charlotte, to you now, because this call is about you, fantastic work you've done. And I hope someday I can send someone to you. And I always do say to people, but as you know, with younger people, it kicks in a bit late. I always say, just talk to Charlotte, or talk to Marie, get to see what they do. And especially the apprentices who've now qualified. I always say, consider IT as a pathway, even becoming an assessor, because you have gone through the experience. Become an assessor, you might be able to improve the process even further. But nevertheless, you've done an amazing job, Charlotte. Is there anything I missed which I should have asked you? Is there anything you want to talk about?
No, not really. I guess if there is anybody out there in the industry or someone considering joining the industry or signing up for an apprenticeship, I would always encourage trades training. To be honest, before I joined MITO, I was very pro, go to university, study, get a student loan, all that sort of thing. And working for MITO, it has just changed my perspective in just 100%. It's, in fact, if anything, I think people in apprenticeships have to work so much harder because they're trying to complete the qualification while they're also trying to work full time. Whereas people at university have the luxury of being able to just go to and attend classroom meetings and lectures and things. And it's a completely different thing. And tradespeople are incredible people. They're talented. They're really, really good at what they do. And they're people that are just so incredibly passionate about what they do. So it's wonderful working with those people. So if anyone's thinking of taking up an apprenticeship, I'd say absolutely go for it. And if anyone wants to has got questions or wants to talk to me about it, I'm always happy for people to reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to have a conversation with them and share my experiences, or I can also point them in the right direction.
Awesome. Now, Charlotte, it's been a pleasure having met you, and I'm sure we will meet again. If I come to Auckland or if you come over to Australia, we'll definitely catch up for a coffee. But it's been a pleasure and a privilege to have known you. So I wish you absolutely all the best. You are an absolute champion, and I've certainly enjoyed this chat with the champion. So wish you all the best, and we would like to hear more from you in the future. All right. Thank you so much, Raman. Thank you very much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. And I had an absolute great time working with you. And you never know, this is a small world. We may get to work together again one day in the future. And I'd certainly absolutely jump at the opportunity to do so. So thank you for today, and all the very best to you as well, Raman. Thank you. Thank you so much. And see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
Do you know a champion who you would like me to interview? Or are you a champion yourself who would like to share with the world the good things you do? Let's connect and let's have a chat.